Okay, the first thing I do is I hold this out like that, and okay, and I'm going to bring this across. Now I might have this, I thought this was the selvage. Yeah, it is. Okay, good. All right, so now what I do is, here's my first flare cone right here. So I'm gonna come and bring this across to my hip, right below that, where I want that first flare cone to start, okay? And then I'm gonna put in a pin right on the hip line. So I just wanna look at this and make sure that that looks straight down. That looks good. Okay. Then the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come across here and pin this where I want that flare to be. So then I'm gonna put it here. Okay, so this is nice and smooth and straight. Okay, then look what happens when I take my hip and I lower it down, when I bring that down. Can you see what it does? See how it creates flare? Just by lowering the hip line, I've created flare. Okay, but let me go back and show you the next thing. After you go straight across, you mark it, then you're gonna come up here and you're going to do some slashing. Okay, and be careful that you don't slash through. Leave yourself enough seam allowance and you don't slash through your seam, but you want to actually slash this right to the flare. Okay, and that was a little bit off, but here it is. Okay, so I slashed right to the flare, then I lower this until I get the amount of flare that I want. Okay, now if I give it too much flare, see how it starts to kind of lay over? So you don't want that. You don't want it to lay down on itself. So you want to bring it up to where you get the amount of flare that you want. Okay, and okay, that looks good. I'm just going to do that much. And then I'm going to actually trap that flare there. Okay, so there it is. And you want that flare to come up right to where your flare cone's going to be. Now, if it looks like if there's too much length right here, you got to really smooth this up. Your flare will start to go off from one side to the other. So I just pulled that up a little bit to get rid of any extra length. And notice how now it comes straight up to where I want it to be, straight up to the waist. Okay, now I'm doing good. So my next flare is going to be right here. So I'm going to go straight across on the waist, put a pin in there, and I'm going to come straight across on the hip until I'm right below it, which I think will be about right here. Okay, this is why when you're sitting down in front, you can get that right. Okay, that might be a little too tight here. Okay, you want it to be smooth but not pulling. Okay, so then I come across here, I put my pin at the top, and now I'm going to take this and I'm going to slash right to the pin. Okay, and I can take some of that off so you can see it. And then I do the same thing. I keep dropping and I think I'm over a little bit too far. So let me go back here. Okay. And then, okay, so you can see now I keep dropping until I get the amount of flare I want. If I want even amounts here, then I could measure that. Or I could say, well, I kind of want a little bit more flare here as it goes around. Or maybe I want to keep them all the same and do 3 flare cones. Okay, but you want to get that nice, straight, smooth all the way up. So I'm going to take this and lift that up a little bit. Okay, I think that's good. So then I trap it. Okay. Okay, so I've got that trapped. Now, can I do any more flare? Well, the problem is, look what happens when I go down. If I wanted to add another one, I can't really do that because I've run out of fabric. So we've given you small pieces, so I would say 2 flare cones are probably enough. If you want to do 3 really small ones, you could. And now if I wanted to add more, like 2 or 3 more flare cones, I would need to have a bigger piece of fabric, right? So I might just leave it at that, okay, because I actually am a little bit, I think I'm gonna have to do a smaller flare because I am running out of fabric to even get a seam there. Okay, so I think, okay, so I did that a little bit, but can you see how this comes right, it comes right up to here. Okay, now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go straight across here. I keep reaching for pins that aren't there. Okay, I'm gonna come over here. Now, one thing is, remember we have the ridge here, and we pin it on the opposite side of this ridge, because that helps with our turn of cloth, so that we get enough there. So I'm gonna go over to the opposite side, pin that, and then I'm gonna come up here. Now, there's another thing. We need to put in some ease. That's the one thing about draping. You have to drape in the ease, which kind of gets in the way, all right? But you can do it. So how much ease do we need on a regular, like on a waistband? Usually 1 inch. So if I'm going from here to here, I need 1/4 of an inch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pin in 1/8 of an inch right here, and where it's folded over, that'll give me the ease. And see, I don't have enough here for a seam allowance, so I would probably need to make this a little smaller and this. Okay, and when I look at this, it's kind of going crooked. So I'm thinking that, see how, okay, can you see how this one goes straight up? Can you see how this one's kind of going like this a little bit? It's kind of curving in. So I think what I'm gonna do is move my flare over to where it's gonna be there. That's better. And now it's, okay, so I had it over too far on the hip. Okay, I wasn't getting it straight up. Also, make sure your fabric is on grain as you put it on here, okay? And I need to do a little bit of, okay, there we go. Okay, now can you see how that's coming straight up here? And this one, so I think that's better. Okay, so I've taken a little bit of this out. So now, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish this, even though I don't have, I probably should have made this smaller to fit on here. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it as it is, and we'll go with that. Okay, now, as you can see here, it's kind of hard sometimes to get around that curve. So I'm gonna take a little bit more up here. I didn't get quite a full 1/8. And then smooth this out. And then I think I can redo this pin. Okay, to get that nice and smooth. Okay, there we go. Okay, all right. Okay, you don't want to get your waist too tight here. See, and I've got, oh, see, and I think I have a little bit too much ease, but I'm gonna go ahead and do some slashing here. Pull this over a bit. Anyway, so you just have to kind of play with this a little bit to get it where you want it. And then I can now pull up. Okay, so I think I'm good. That looks good. Okay, so now I've got that done. Okay, now I've got to do some marking before I take it off.